On today's special episode of Homeworthy, we're stepping inside some of Washington, D.C.'s most stunning and storied homes. First, we'll visit a beautifully restored Victorian row home in the heart of Capitol Hill. Once stripped of its historic charm, this home has been lovingly brought back to life with timeless character and modern functionality. Next, we'll step into a home rich with political history where every room holds a story. This home is a true reflection of legacy and elegance. Then we'll explore a vibrant, art-filled retreat shaped by global travels that have influenced every detail. With pieces from Maine to the Middle East, this space is a testament to adventure and creativity. And finally, we'll tour a bold and eclectic home just outside the city, designed by an interior designer who has moved 13 times in 19 years. Now she's finally settled, and she's made this home a masterpiece of color, pattern, and personality. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Melissa Sanabria, and welcome to my home in Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
I'm Melissa Sanabria, and welcome to my row home in Washington, D.C., and I can't wait to show you around. I have lived in this home for about 12 years, and I live here with my husband, Alberto, our daughter, our dog, who's a little crazy, and my mom. So it's a full house. I live in Capitol Hill, and what a lot of people don't know is Capitol Hill is actually the largest neighborhood in DC. It's very residential here. It's a lot of row homes. So when I first started to visit the Hill, I felt it reminded me a lot of Europe, and just that really appealed to me. We live in the historic district, and a lot of these homes were built around the late 1800s. So that's pretty common here for the architecture. It's a lot of Victorian row homes that were popular at the time. And it's very family friendly, lots of families, lots of kids, lots of dogs. And it's a little sleepy at night, but we really love that. And then we have, great proximity to the mall and the Capitol and all the museums. So it feels like a little village in the city is how a lot of people describe it. You kind of can't walk down the street without seeing a neighbor and running into family and friends. That's what we really love about it here. So this is the living room. You walk into the house and kind of step right into the living room, which is pretty typical in these row homes. In my home, as I mentioned, this home actually was a flip. And so many years ago, they did take out all the walls, which is kind of sad. So you see the way that the house is laid out, which is pretty typical, and you can see right from the front all the way through to the back. So you come into the living area, and then we have the dining room, and then the kitchen is in the back of the home with access to the rear. When I renovated it, we were used to having it all be open, so we kept it that way. I kind of dreamed of putting some walls back in, but just the reality was the way we live, this did work for our family, so I left it that way and focused on putting in other details to try to make it feel special. So here in the living room, when you come in, the focal point of the living room is the fireplace. When we bought the house, this fireplace did not look this way. So they tore it out, it doesn't function. We didn't invest in making it operable again, but what we did was we did invest in a vintage mantle, and we sourced this with a company called Mantle House here in DC. It's another woman-owned business that we love. And this mantle is the same period as the house. So it's like late 1800s. This house was built in 1865. So it feels like this is, the goal was to make it feel like this belongs here. And this is a piece you might have actually found in this home had it not been kind of torn apart many years ago. So kind of part of putting back that charm was adding the the beautiful vintage mantle here. And I really wanted this to be a focal point in the space. One of the other things we did here was added these built-in bookshelves flanking the fireplace. So here, I designed these in partnership with Jewett Farms. They make incredible cabinetry. They're based up in Maine. We have a lot of books, and a lot of people in DC have a lot of books. So it's pretty typical. What you'll see in especially DC row homes is like fireplace built-ins for all of our stuff and all of our books. So down here, in the bottom, this gives us additional space for storage. We did walnut here with like this pretty curve on, I don't know if you can see like this curved detail on this closed cabinet at the base. We designed this to mimic the curve in the fireplace as well. So we just kind of like repeated this soft curve here. So they kind of speak to each other. Even though this is a little more modern and feels a little updated, it just kind of speaks to that bit of architecture. So we did all of this in walnut, and then we wanted to bring in some color, so I did the surround in green. This is Turtle Green by Benjamin Moore. I love this color. So these are some of my favorite pieces in the space, and again, they just give us lots of storage, super functional. I have all my daughter's like art supplies and all that stuff in here too, which is great. Yeah, this side, same situation. We don't have our TV on this side, so you might have noticed over here we have our frame TV. So it's not quite the focal point in the room, but this is where we sit and hang out and watch TV. This side is more just book storage, and again, additional storage below. These bookshelves, I feel like they're so beautiful, and then I realized, oh, now I have to style them, which styling bookshelves like is an art form and really is very time consuming. So if you're challenged with doing it, like there's a good reason, because it can be really challenging. So I'll talk a little bit about what we have here and then how we styled it. So a lot of the books that you see, it's a total mix of my books and my husband's books that we've been lugging around with us for years. They're very meaningful to us. We both, my husband still like works in finance, and we both are economics nerds. So a lot of what you see on here, there's a lot of econ books, which is kind of funny and unexpected. One of these books that I wrote, this is my first publication. It's very interesting. If you're looking for a good read to fall asleep to, this is a book I wrote many, many years ago. So that's on the shelves. And then the way that we approached it, because we have so much stuff and so many books, but we also have some fun little objects. What I really like when I'm styling bookshelves is like I want them to feel full, and you want your eye to move around. And I like to have little surprises in here. So we have some fun little things, like we have this little Albert Einstein action figure, which I got when I lived in Princeton, New Jersey. I was living there when I was working in New York many years ago, and I love him, and he's just kind of weird. And then some other little, just like special bits of like ceramics. These are just some pretty brass, like vintage bookends that I have had for many years. And then actually like working hard to make this feel like really kind of organic. So I focus a lot like on the shapes and the colors to make sure, again, that your eye is moving around the bookshelves and not kind of getting stuck in one spot. So my husband, it drives him nuts that these aren't actually categorized by topic, because that's what he would like. But really it's aesthetic and just kind of making sure like there's variety and height, and then like some objects throughout. Storage is the name of the game here in these houses. We don't have any closets. So that's like a pretty way for us to include that on this floor. So in the bay window, this is a space actually, this is a very common feature, especially in these Victorian row homes, which are super common here in DC. A lot of people don't know what to do with this bay window because it's sort of like off your main living area and it's a little bit awkward. What we use it for is, this is like, I call it my daughter's command center. So she really spends the most time here. This is where like she likes to draw and journal, and like she'll sit and have a snack after school. So like, you know, my neighbor who could see her next door, she always called it her command center because she could see her from the windows, like say hi to the neighbors. So this is really her spot. It's also the spot where my dog, it's also when my daughter's not home, it's our dog's command center. So she likes to, you know, just like prop up and like look out the window. Sometimes for me too, I'll sit, like if I'm working from home, I do take calls from here. It's nice and sunny. So most of the stuff that I have, especially on this main floor, is vintage. So these chairs I got from First Dibs and then reupholstered them in fabric that I actually had left over from a little custom lampshade that's in the kitchen. So we had extra fabric, and so that went on these guys. I bought these two as a pair. And then this little table in the center, this guy I bought at our local flea market over at Eastern Market, right here in the neighborhood. And it was from an estate sale. It was like a super good deal. So this is from the flea. And then these are just really inexpensive First Dibs finds that we recovered. So my path to interior design is not a traditional route. So I was working in financial services. I was an economist by trade and by education. So I did that for about 15 years. And I was just reaching a point in my career where I was really just looking for something else that's more fulfilling. And I guess it was a long time coming. Design and interiors were something that I always really valued and were really important to me. And friends would ask me like, oh, where did you get this? And where did you find this piece? And I always loved shopping for vintage. And so I started a blog and I just started to share all of that information since I would get those questions a lot. And I was like, maybe this is something people would find interesting. So I kind of started that way. I worked with a leadership coach who helped me with visioning and kind of figuring out my path. So I made the move gradually, and when I kind of started to feel like I had some traction with my blog and I just started taking some small projects on, I did some renovations on my own, and I was really trying to learn on my own dime, kind of making mistakes on my own house. And I started to get some traction, and I felt like there was enough there that I was ready to make a change. In the meantime as well, I had my daughter, so that just gave me a lot of perspective, and I realized that I wanted to also be more of a part of my local community. In my job previously, I traveled all the time. And so I just felt this like longing to be more part of my community, be home more for my daughter. And I thought, if I'm working so hard, like I want to be doing something that I feel really proud of. So I decided to, after getting some traction, resigning from my job. I was working as a consultant, resigned from that job, and just started to take on projects, and it kind of grew from there. And always kind of going into it with the intention of, I knew I wanted to work with a team. I wanted to have create a work culture for women. That was also important to me. I came from a male-dominated field, so kind of had this vision for what kind of business I wanted to run, and just wanting to really serve my community, and design was the way I wanted to do that. So in the living room, the color palette that I have out here, a lot of it, honestly, it's like what I just tend to naturally gravitate toward and what I find I'm really liking. With this sofa, we actually installed a similar color sofa on a project not too long ago, and I just became obsessed with it and fell in love with it. And so I got one for myself, and I thought it was perfect for this space. And I also used, on the floor here, I have this vintage rug that I've had for years, and it has beautiful blues and browns and taupey colors in it. And so that is also a jumping off point. I love that I can just pull different colors from that and then use that to kind of pull them through the room. It's a little challenging when these homes, when you have no walls and everything has to work together. And so just always keeping that in mind and making sure everything really speaks to each other was important. So you'll kind of see some of these things also repeated in the kitchen and the dining room as we move through the spaces. But I like to keep the walls just kind of fresh and feeling simple, because I tend to gravitate toward dark woods and some of these warmer colors. So by keeping the walls more neutral, when I'm selecting fabrics and accessories, that's where I'm going to gravitate toward color and pattern. And so having a more neutral backdrop, knowing that that's kind of where I'm going to lean as I'm sourcing furniture, allows me to keep that balance so it doesn't all feel too heavy, and the walls feel a little bit lighter. And then I bring in velvets and some warmer tones and stuff in the furniture pieces. So in terms of some of the furniture and what I have in here, as I mentioned, a lot of it is vintage and just things I've collected over the years, which I find, when I just truly love a piece, it feels timeless and it doesn't go out of style. So You know, even like I have this Nelson bubble lamp. This is classic, mid-century. I love it. I've had it for so many years. It's probably, it's like vintage now, but I bought it new. But I've had it for such a long time, and it just continues to serve me, and I love it. I love the glow. I think it's perfect. I have this same, like this coffee table that I have here. Super functional. This is a vintage piece I've had for years. It has little drawers. We can stash like our playing cards and little notebooks and pens, pencils, coasters, all stash in there. So this just, again, like continues to work for us. Like no need to get something new. Other pieces in here I have this chair. This is also vintage. This one I sourced on First Dibs. Some of the other pieces, like I don't even remember where I got this coffee table. I've had it for so long, but this was a First Dibs piece. I had it recovered in this beautiful, this is a Zac and Fox, like kind of an eggplant velvet that I'm obsessed with. My dog immediately started to chew on this chair because she loves it. So you might see that, but this is one of my favorite pieces in the room too. Super loungy and casual. I have lived in this home for about 12 years. When we initially bought it, my husband and I had just gotten married, and this house had been flipped a few years before. So it did not have a lot of charm. It was not really particularly special on the interior, but the location was amazing. And it also had an English basement apartment that we could rent and help supplement our mortgage. And so that was really important to us. And that was a way that we could get into this neighborhood. So I kind of knew going in, like, okay, we can just make this work. You know, we can improve upon what is inside the house, but like the location we can't change, and that's amazing. And that's what we're really paying for. And then we had this basement we could rent. So initially when we moved in, we didn't have to do too much because it functioned fine, but it definitely evolved over time. So we started with just some aesthetic updates to the home, and we lived with it for a while. And then back in 2021, like it was like right on the edge of the pandemic, we finally pulled the trigger and we did a complete whole home gut renovation. And at that point, we were able to connect our English basement so we could gain use of that space, and then really just take the whole house down to the studs and improve all of the unsexy stuff. So like we updated all of our systems and electrical and all of that, you know, not fun stuff. But then we also had the opportunity in putting it back together to put some of the charm back into the house, which was always my goal, was, you know, we can add the charm back in. And that was what I wanted to do with that large renovation. So that, you know, we moved out. That took about a good year for the construction. And then since then, and you know, now a couple of years later, I'm still finally finishing up like all of the final like finishing touches and layers. So there's still some projects to do. I mean, I'm always like designing, and also sometimes it's hard when I do it all day, like when I come home on, you know, on the weekends to like be focused on my house, sometimes I just run out of energy, but I'm getting there. So it's kind of a never-ending project. But yeah, so that's where we are now, is just like finally wrapping up the furnishing and the decorating and just putting that final layer into the home. So now we'll go into the dining room, which is just a few feet away. Here in our dining room, you know, it really is kind of a pass-through space, we call it, which is very common in row homes here in DC. So I tried to make sure that it's grounded and has its own purpose and feels like its own space. And so a few ways that we do that are by having, you know, a rug, making sure you have a light fixture centered over your table. It usually means it's not centered in the room. That's important. We see that a lot, that mistake. So, you know, making sure your fixture is centered over your table. And then here we also went for a large scale piece of art, which helps this area feel even more grounded. This particular piece, my husband and I both really loved. It's a Zan Padron. He's a photographer. And he does these amazing works where he sets up a camera and just like takes photos in one point in different cities around the world. This one's in Chelsea in New York. I love the light blue background of the wall here. And we love like all these people in the picture. Sometimes when we sit here at the table, we like make up like little stories and, you know, we talk about like, what's this person doing? And like, you know, just kind of get into the detail of it, which is really fun. This dining table is a vintage dining table I've had for many years. It's a Paul Macab table, mid-century. It's mahogany with this like beautiful little brass band around it, which I love. It has like, I think I have 7 leaves for this table, which I have never used all 7 of them, but it is really nice because something we have to do often here is, you know, for our everyday living, I don't need all those leaves in the table, but when we host, super easy, like expand it. We have space, we can open it up, and then we can host a lot more people. But our everyday lives, like we don't need that much space, so we keep it a little smaller. We do use this table like all the time. I feel like in these homes, for what, you know, when you think about like price per square foot and what you're paying here in the city, like I am a big believer in like we need to use all of our space. So this table is, we have dinner here, my daughter does homework here. This is really, you know, super functional for us. We spend a ton of time here. The chairs, also vintage, had them recovered in this Zac and Fox fabric that I love very much. So over on this side of the dining room, you kind of notice a theme. I have another vintage little cabinet here. This guy actually, this is where all of internet and modem and all of like those wires come into the house. So I needed a solution to hide them. So I got this little, it was an old Swedish record player that we took out the inside, and all of that stuff lives here. So that's what this guy's job is. And then this rubber tree plant I rescued from a client where it was not doing so great. So she let me take it, and I've been nursing it back to health, and it loves this window, so it's doing great. I keep my stack of magazines here. So like this is my like ritual on the weekend. I have like my stack of all my design magazines, and I like to sit here at the dining table and I just like go through them and you like methodically like read them cover to cover, like in the morning before like everybody's up and all the like activities have commenced. So this area serves as a little bit of our transition from like dining to kitchen. It also gives us a little bit of a drop zone because where you walk into our front door, it's pretty tight. We don't have a ton of space. So this little cabinet serves as storage. Like this is where we'll put mail, you know, stuff like that when it comes in. And then again, just this cabinet storage, like you have to get so creative with storage. So like finding cabinets and pieces of furniture for storage has been super critical. This is a piece I sourced from Cherish, and I love it. It has this like pretty like tonal checkerboard type pattern and this like cute little hardware that I love. And then we just have one of our extra dining chairs, which you'll see its partner over in the kitchen too. But like that guy just hangs out here and gets a ton of use. My daughter puts her shoes on in the morning, heads out the door. Like this is like a super functional little, it doesn't look like much, but it's kind of like a workhorse of a space for us, like as part of our routine. This is where everything kind of lands. We say it's historic homes for modern families. And, of course we love to do all kinds of houses, but our like real passion is focusing on historic properties and updating them in a way that works for modern living. I grew up just outside Philadelphia in Bucks County, which if you're familiar with that area, it is very old. It's a lot of old like Revolutionary War era towns. And so that's where I grew up. So I grew up in old homes. I love old houses. I love creaky floors. I love wavy glass. Like those are just things I feel like they give me butterflies. They make me excited. And I also understand, that sometimes those things need to be updated. And I feel like, a lot of people do it wrong. And I've seen a lot of people do it wrong over the years. So I feel like really excited and passionate about making updates to these older homes in ways that honor the house, respect the architecture, they feel natural, but yet, also understanding that in order for these homes to have longevity, they have to be updated in ways that make sense for how we live today. So I think the roots of it come from, where I grew up and how I grew up, and then also just an extension of how I live. And I understand that, I need modern amenities and families need modern amenities, and like, how do we make that work and how do we blend the two? Yeah, in terms of my team, I mean, the team I have is amazing, and I think it's really important to me that the folks on my team, like, we share the same values and like we all feel passionate about the same things and in like kind of the same way. So our studio is based in the historic district in Capitol Hill, like we're right in it. And the rest of the team, kind of has that shared value, which really helps. And they get excited about the same thing. So we can all like geek out over these like historic details and stuff like that we want to try to save, and then think about like, okay, how do we improve this? Like, how do we make this flow better? How do we improve upon what's here? But like always going back to honoring what exists and what's worth kind of highlighting and saving. Okay, so from here we can walk into the kitchen. This kitchen it's quite long, and this was a little bit of a challenge, and I thought a lot about how I wanted to design it. I do really like the function of a galley kitchen. I didn't feel the need to have an island. I really preferred a kitchen table. So you'll see in the back, we have a little built-in banquette and a little table and a chair. For our family, it works really well and it's perfect. So that was something really important to me. I'm a kitchen table girl, so I opted for that over trying to do an island situation in here. And also in the kitchen, I wanted to bring that theme of like carrying that walnut through. So I decided to do these counter resting cabinets in walnut. I did both of them with glass. Part of the reason is when I host, I really like people to feel at home, and I want people to feel like you can help yourself. And so you can see where everything is. It's super easy. Like, this end of the kitchen is kind of our bar area. All of the glasses are here. All of the alcohol is here. Like, you can help yourself. The other end, a little further down, is like dishes, glassware. So people just feel it's real easy to just come in and like jump in or, get yourself something. And having the counter resting cabinets is super helpful too, because again, for my daughter, I need her to be able to participate and, set the table and put her stuff away. And so having the cabinets resting on the counter means like she can reach everything. She can find everything. So there's no like, I don't know where this goes situation. So, so that just makes it super easy, like, and for everyone to kind of be involved. And I love that. For countertop material, we decided to go for marble. This is Carrara marble, which is pretty ubiquitous and actually pretty affordable. There's some, controversy around marble being durable, and that's usually folks' like number one question. So I say it's a personal choice. I don't mind that this marble will patina, it will get some etching. That's okay with me. I am comfortable with that. I also am someone who constantly is cleaning, so that's just my personality. So like that, I'm comfortable doing that. If you're a low maintenance person and if every little ding or little mark is gonna bother you, then I say maybe marble's not for you. But for us, it felt like the right choice. I love the natural beauty that marble offers. So we decided to go for marble for the countertop and then also for the backsplash, just to keep this side of the room really simple. And what we actually did with this backsplash, and I don't know if you can tell, but because we have these counter resting cabinets, I didn't want to have any depth to the backsplash. So we actually have made it flush with the wall. So this took a little bit of engineering from the team to cut out the wall and make sure when we returned this marble up that it sits perfectly flush. And then that allows me to have these counter resting cabinets just sit perfectly flush and be secured to the wall as well. And something else in this area while I'm over here that we did with the countertop and this window is we made the window counter height. So we were able to extend the countertop and give a little extra depth here. I love to have flowers and plants. So this is just a spot where I have a little bit more space to like have fresh flowers or, just be able to spread out a little bit. And so extending that countertop that became the windowsill, and that gave us an opportunity to do that here. And then we also pulled because this is such a long run of cabinets on this side of the kitchen, we pulled the sink cabinet a little bit forward, and we just did a little detail here with the stone, like a nice little curve, and then just to create a little additional depth and interest, we have the sink cabinet pulled a little bit forward. So then right down the middle of the room, we have this beautiful vintage runner. This runner I've had for many, many years. We have a lot of vintage rugs, and we source a lot of vintage rugs on our projects. This particular one, honestly, I've had it for so long, I don't remember where this one came from, but for a lot of the rugs you see in the house and for a lot of our projects, we partner with a local vintage rug vendor called Passerine Home. And it's another women-owned business, local to us. We have a great relationship with her because something she allows us to do is see the rugs in person before we pull the trigger, which is just a really nice added benefit, and something too, like as designers, like that we kind of get that little bit of inside information, because it's so hard to tell online what things look like. So over here, this is kind of a moment in the kitchen, and this really was something that I always had in my brain when I was designing this kitchen for such a long time, like dreaming. What I really wanted to use, and I don't remember where this obsession started, but I have always been a huge fan of Delft tiles, and specifically I love these Delft tiles in this sepia color, these are much more unusual. They're a little harder to source. Like usually Delft tiles you see, it's that blue and white, like that's like very the typical Delft. So for just such a long time I've been, so obsessed with these, and I wanted to use them somewhere. So this really was kind of the start for me, like the jumping off point. And this also informs like what you see some of like throughout the house. I think that this color in this tile, like this purpley kind of brownish eggplanty color, you see in my living room, and it like just gives other, it shows up in small ways in other places, which is really fun. So yeah, so I just decided to keep it here. In this moment just behind the range, and then we did this custom paneled paneling around the hood, and here we repeated that turtle green color that you see out in the living room showing up in the built-ins. And there we had some reading detail, but here is like a little bit of a wider paneling, and this does feel a little bit more European, which is something I'm really drawn to. So, the combination of the Dutch Delft tiles and like kind of bringing in like this like hood moment and this paneling is like brings in a little bit more of that European feel. And then with bringing in these colors and the walnut is, why I went for something a little more neutral and taupey in all of the base cabinets, because I didn't want to compete, and I kind of wanted those to be the colors and the moments in the room. So then the base cabinets are just kind of like a nice neutral taupey color. So here in the kitchen, we managed to tuck in a little tiny powder room. It's really the only spot for it on the first floor. It's really small. What we did in here was just like a fun little pinstripe wallpaper, super simple, the tiniest of sinks with a pretty little brass waterworks faucet and fixture. And here, just keeping it really simple, but did like a mahogany paint on all of the trim and everything. Trying to dress it up, and it's like the smallest possible bathroom you can have. So now I'm gonna take you over to the breakfast nook, which was a really important space in the layout when I was designing the kitchen. It's, we don't have much room. We're a small family. So just having a small table, this little banquette seat in the corner with these windows kind of framing the space. And then we have an extra, this is one of our extra floater chairs. You saw its partner over in the dining room. And again, like this is a vintage chair that we had recovered, which we love to do. We get so much mileage out of this little corner of the house. It's really one of my favorite spots in the whole house. This is where we read the paper. We still have the paper from Sunday hanging out here. This is where we have breakfast in the morning. All of the morning activities happen here. So this is just like a super busy nook, and one of the sunniest little spots in the house actually is back here. So we really love it. And it was really important to me that the kitchen had a little seating and gathering place. because we all end up hanging out in the kitchen anyway. So just really wanted to make sure we could accommodate that. So this table, this is actually new, but it has a really kind of more classic and traditional look to it. It has a marble top, which is super durable and functional. It's held up really, really well. And then the banquette here in the corner, I had this made by my upholsterer. It has a back, which is super easy to make, and then the cushion seat. And then underneath this banquette, we have more storage as well. So if you lift up the cushion, we have, the top of the bench lifts up. We have doors like on piano hinges so that you have more storage underneath here. And then what I did was paired, the fabric from the bench matches the fabric in the chair. I don't always like everything to be too matchy-matchy, but in this instance, I thought it was a little like unexpected and that it worked well. And then it's a fun way to bring this pattern from the kitchen, out into the living room when these chairs kind of float as supplemental seating when we host. So it brings a little bit about that color and pattern out into the rest of the house as well. So this little sconce is one of my favorite lights in the whole house. So in the evening, I love when we have all the lights out, but I just have this particular light on because it gives such a lovely glow. This is a light from Urban Electric, and then I did this custom pleated shade. And what's fun fact, the fabric on this shade is actually the fabric on the front, the two little pair of chairs in our bay window. Again, like not wanting everything to feel too matchy, but having this fabric in a pleat, like it kind of disguises the pattern a little bit. So it's just kind of fun. The way it looks on the chairs feels very different, but yet like we're repeating the same like colors and pattern like throughout the house. And again, just trying to make that connection because it is all one space, even though it's in a small detail, but like bringing what's in the back of the house, like all the way through to the front to make sure everything feels connected. So this is just like one little fun detail and way that I did that. Okay, so I have a couple of these little prints here in the kitchen. These it's like a fun little pair of prints that I got at Miss Pixie's here in DC, which is a great vintage shop over downtown. And I just bought these many years ago and they've like always followed me around. And so I found a little home for them here. So just like have this vintage pair hanging out in the kitchen. Okay, so now I'm gonna take you out back to our patio. One of the biggest selling points of this house, besides the location, was this back patio. So we have this, it's not very big, but our little slice of heaven back here in our patio, it's just big enough for us. And so we did renovate this space when we moved in, and we put in new cedar fencing. We did a built-in kitchen. And then I'm always kind of gardening and working on the garden, so like a container garden. So you kind of see that going on a little bit as well. So it's something fun that Bea and I like to do together. But something we love about the space is because what we have here, which is really rare in the city, is a lot of privacy. So we don't have neighbors close to us that can see over into our little, postage stamp lot here, which is really great. And when we entertain and host, like this is primarily where we're gathering. We love to grill. We love to have people over for dinner. The kids can play, whatever. And like this is where we're usually spending our time. Typically best time is fall and spring. Sometimes the summer is a little rough in DC, but we get a ton of use of it, a ton of use of the space. Really most of the rest of the year. We'll grill out here in like January. So this is one of our favorite little spots. So one of the bigger investments that we did make out here in this space was adding a built-in kitchen area. So we have a built-in like grill, countertop, and then a place for the gas. And again, just a little bit more storage out here with such limited space, like going in this direction just helps us make the most of the little bit of space that we did have out here. Okay, so now we'll head up to my daughter's room upstairs so you can follow me up. This is my daughter Beatrice's room. It's very small, but again, pretty typical in these row homes. It's actually one of my favorite rooms in the house. It's so cozy. She gets great light and it really does have everything that she needs. So a few things in here. to point out are one of her requirements. She's 9. Having a pink bed was a requirement she had. So we did this pink Jenny Lind style bed. This is new. Creighton Kids is a great resource for kids stuff, so we got that from there. She picked out this quilt on her own. She loves it. This quilt is from Schoolhouse. And then we have this quilt at the foot of the bed. This was made by a dear family friend of ours when she was born. So that's very special to us, and that like hangs out there. The canopy was also something she really wanted and she loves, and like adds to the cozy factor. So lots of cuddling and stuff happening in here, and it's like one of our favorite things in the evening, to sit and read and hang out in here. And one of my favorite features in the room is the wallpaper. This wallpaper is a replica of historic wallpaper from like the late 1800s. The theme is kind of, you know, when I'm selecting something historic, it's really nice to select something from the time period from when the house was built. I like to do that. I think it's a fun way to say, like, this is kind of what was in fashion at that time. So it's a reproduction of that. And we love the colors. My daughter loves it. Like, there's all these little like squirrels and birds. And again, just kind of like, you know, we talk about like the different little like birds and like what's happening in this paper. And she loves it. I would really like to do the whole room. She only let me do one wall. So we did this wall where it has the biggest impact. And then, you know, we just have like her basics, her books here, which we're kind of outgrowing this as she's getting older. And then we repeated the same kind of style in the furniture, but brought in some of that dark finish that we have downstairs in the wood, bringing that up into her room. So Beatrice loves movies and art and theater and performing. So some of the things that you see here, we saw Hamilton not too long ago. We have her Hamilton playbill. Last year, we took her on family vacation. We went to LA so she could go to the movie studios and really like experience what it feels like to be in a studio. And so that was like a really fun trip. So she has her little Warner Brothers thing. I forget what it's called. So that is from our trip. And also we're like super big into Harry Potter. So you see a lot of Harry Potter going on. And so that's like a big part of our lives. It's something we talk about a lot. And you don't see Taylor Swift represented here, but that's like another popular topic of conversation in the house at the moment. So we have like the same kind of leg detail. This is a custom vanity stool from Nikki Kehoe that we love, that works perfectly as her desk chair. Yeah, and then the nightstand kind of goes with all of that as well. So this is our hall bath. This is primarily my daughter's bathroom. So I really wanted it to reflect her. She picked out the wallpaper. So it's this cute little polka dot Sandberg wallpaper. We did a little tile pattern on the floor, a custom vanity, and then again went for the marble countertops in this space and stuck with the brass fixtures as well. So I wanted it to feel girly and feminine, but I at the same time think that she'll be able to grow into this space. Even though it is polka dots, it still kind of has like a little bit of a sophisticated feel to it. And the pinks, not too pinks. I think, you know, my hope is that this is going to serve her for a long time. For me, home is a place first and foremost that everyone needs to feel safe, and you need to feel like it's a safe space where you can be yourself and you can really unwind and be your most vulnerable. And I think, you know, to do that, you want to make sure your environment brings you joy and is a place that isn't causing you stress. It should be peaceful and calm, and whatever that means to you as an individual, like however you thrive, you know. So first and foremost, that's what I think about is like home is a safe place. You know, a lot of our clients are super busy and they have really busy lives and big jobs, and home should be a place where they can come to and just really feel like it's where they can truly relax and be themselves. And that's something we're always holding. It's why all of our homes and spaces look a little bit, they all look different, and it's because they reflect the people who live there, so that, you know, their most personal space feels personal to them and just feels like a place they can really feel safe and relax. And for me, that's really important. And I want everyone in my home to feel like you're welcome to go get yourself something to drink, like put your feet up, like make yourself at home. Like that's the kind of vibe in my house that I want to create. And so we try to, make sure that that's how everyone is like living their lives. Thank you so much, Homeworthy, for coming and taking a tour of my house today. Until next time, see you later. Bye.
This table was my grandparents', so many luminaries dined at this table, including 4 presidents. My grandparents were very close to Lady Bird and Lyndon Johnson, so they had dinner here at this table many times, as did President Truman, President Roosevelt. My parents were very close to Eleanor and Franklin Roosevelt. And Eisenhower, a Republican, which might surprise you, but my grandmother believed in bipartisan entertaining. She told me when I was in college that if I had a dinner party, I should always have a Democratic senator, a Republican congressman, a journalist, and a Supreme Court justice at my dinner parties. And I took note.
Have you had one of those parties?
Most of my dinner parties are for women, but as most of the great people in politics, media, and even the Supreme Court are women, I would say yes.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hi, I'm Susanna Quinn. Welcome to my Washington home. I'm an entrepreneur, a 5th generation Washingtonian, also known as a cave dweller, and some people, like myself, also consider me to be an interior designer, a chef, and a flower designer.
What's the term cave dweller for?
I don't know where it originates, but I think what it means is that I'm dwelling in the caves of my ancestors. I haven't left Washington. This is a photo of my mother in her modeling days and me on my 45th birthday. There used to be pictures of some of the kids and some of the grandchildren, but my husband said to me, "Oh, we don't have pictures of all of the kids and all of the grandchildren." And I said, "Well, then I need a bigger house and a bigger table." So we ended up with just my mother and me. This is a Rigo candle, the cypress candle, which I absolutely love. Jackie Kennedy used to burn them in the White House, and they smell amazing. I like to get up really early on Monday mornings and go out to the wholesale florist in Silver Spring and just buy a ton of flowers and do arrangements throughout the house, because I could do about 10 arrangements for the cost of one arrangement ordered online. My interior design style, my design ethos, if you will, is somewhat captive by history, because I have so many family pieces that I tend to design around. I wanted my living room to be decorated in neutral colors because I wanted my art and my books and my photos to really pop and be the star of the show. This photo from Franklin Roosevelt was to my grandfather, who was in the House and the Senate from 1938 to 1968. He was a very, very powerful politician during that era. In every room of my house, there are framed photos. That's a really important part of the interior design in my home, is just having reflections of the memories of the experiences and the trips and pictures of my family everywhere, because when I walk through my house, I really feel like I'm surrounded by my loved ones and happy memories of things that we've done together.
You do have a few star photos in here. Show me some of them.
Oh gosh. I love this one. This is my husband, Jack Quinn, who was White House counsel in the Clinton administration with President Clinton in the Clintons' home about a month after our son Storm was born. And I love this because President Clinton is holding a photo of Storm, which he inscribed with a really cute inscription. "Storm, you look good and calm. Congratulations, Bill Clinton." This is a photo from President Kennedy to my father. My father was chief of staff to a cabinet member in the Kennedy administration. Democratic blood flowing through my body. This coffee table, my grandmother had designed for her house, and it must have been, I don't even know what, like 1945. She had a 2-story enormous addition. Edward Durrell Stone, who designed the Kennedy Center, did the initial drawings for it. And so she had this table designed. It weighs about 100 tons. And I just love it. In fact, my grandmother used to have cushions, not coffee table books, cushions around the edges so people could sit. It added additional seating and have a drink and just talk to people on the sofa. And I sit on the coffee table all the time when people are over. I love it. I love this photo. You can see that President Clinton is whispering something to my husband and Gore is trying to listen. And I actually got from the White House photographer the series of photographs so you can see the events, the sequence of events that lead to this photograph. So you know what he's whispering about, but I can't tell you, sorry. My favorite thing about this room is the painting over the mantle. I always thought that art was like this painting over here of Venice. You know, I thought it was, I think of like the little girl with the watering can, Renoir. I don't think of very abstract art, and now abstract art is my passion. I love it. So I love that painting, and I really think the colors are amazing. That's the most important thing to me. Juxtaposing old with new and high with low.
I don't see anything low in here.
We'll go up to the young adult family room and I'll show you some low.
What's this table here? This has a lot of memorabilia.
Well, this is an antique table and an antique mirror. And what I love about this table is very important friends and family members have their pictures on this table. And whenever those people come over, they always move the photos and they place their photo in the front. And so every time we have a family member or a guest, the pictures get switched around. So I'm learning when I know a certain friend or family member is coming over to put their photo in the front. I love this shelf. This is the Ancestral shelf. And I popped my son's little dinosaur up there so that he could be up there with his grandparents who are no longer with us. This is my parents and my husband's parents and my grandparents and all of their baby cups and my baby cup. This is the day that I was christened at Christ Church in Georgetown. My mother was married 3 times. I was from the 3rd marriage. This was her first husband's baby cup. I don't know how I ended up with that, but I thought I would put it up there on the Ancestral shelf. And this is my husband with the Pope, Pope John Paul. And we have a little piece of Storm's artwork in front of it because we mix everything up here. We are leaving the living room. We're coming into the dining room and we're passing my favorite piece of art in the house by Gian Garofalo. My husband and I saw it at an art gallery at a CNN brunch and we fell in love with it and we left and we thought about it and we talked about it for like 6 months. And finally I called and it was still at the gallery, so we bought it. And I really think it just makes the house, it makes the entrance foyer. If you turn around in my dining room, probably the oldest painting in this house is, I call them my 3 angels, but it's actually 3 Hawaiian girls. It's a painting by Jung, a very famous Hawaiian painter that my grandmother bought on the way to travels in China. And I think my grandfather snuck it home in a diplomatic pouch. Oh no, wait, it's from Hawaii, so we didn't need a diplomatic pouch. She snuck home a lot of things in diplomatic pouches. But anyway, I love that painting, and that's impressionist, but it's very traditional. We are gonna go to the bathroom. So when guests excuse themselves to go to the powder room, they're often gone for like 30 minutes because there are so many fun photos to see in here, and then they come out and they want all the stories. That is a magazine cover I did when I chaired the National Portrait Gallery. There's a lot of family photos, my husband on Air Force One, a letter that I treasure from Secretary Mattis. Well, of course we have a monogram tea towel because my mother told me if it's not moving, monogram it. We have a painting from Ted Kennedy given to my husband and me when we got married, which I love because it's of daffodils, and he says, "May you always dance with the daffodils." I was 16 years old and I met President Reagan for the first time, and I said to him, "Listen, I happen to think that you're a great president and your policies are doing wonders for the country, but honestly, I really think you're the cutest president we've ever had." And there's another photo of him after this picture was taken, and he's just like, you know, laughing that famous Reagan laugh. I loved him.
Did he say anything to you after you said that?
Oh my gosh, he just burst into hysterics, and then I saw him the next night and he came over and gave me a hug. It was a little bit more casual in those days. We are going into the kitchen, and I also put a bottle of champagne out just in case, and I made a charcuterie board so that we could have a little snack after we're done. We are going from the kitchen into the family room, which is another one of my absolute favorite rooms in this house. I see we have a Nerf gun bullet, which tells you everything you need to know. The only rule in this house is no body shots. You'll notice again that this room is decorated with very neutral colors because I just love it when the books and the art and the flowers tell this story. This is my son's playroom. His name is Storm and he's 10 years old and he loves animals. So I decorated it in a safari theme, but it's a timeless room. He can, hang out here and drink beers behind my back when he's 18 and he's not gonna feel like he's in a kiddie playroom. So I do mix the highs and the lows. I have the Schumacher wallpaper, but I also have pillows that I had made from a fabric store out by Dulles Airport where I do a lot of fabrication, a lot of draperies, a lot of pillows throughout the house because it's wholesale and it's fabulous. Next, I'm gonna take you to the gym. And if I say any room in the house is my favorite room and I'm not talking about the gym, I'm lying. And here's why. 2.5 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer, later downgraded to stage 3, but it doesn't really matter. I had 7 surgeries and 6 rounds of chemo and, feel like I was really on the brink of death multiple times. I lost 30 pounds twice and I built my strength back up and am now talking to you as a cancer-free and healthy person because of the love of my family and friends and my Peloton. You will notice that we have 2 Pelotons and not just one, which is not as extravagant as it seems. During COVID, the gyms were closed, and so it was really helpful to me to have my friends come over and do Peloton rides with me to help me stay motivated to get my strength back. This is the loggia, which is an outdoor but covered porch, which we redesigned during COVID so that we could have friends over and be socially distanced, safe, outside, 6 feet apart. And John and Kristen Checky designed this for me to look like the back of a yacht, which I love. I remember the first summer that we bought this house, I said to my husband, we don't need to vacation anywhere. Look at this. This is a vacation. And I just love it here. There's very few properties in Washington that are just surrounded by woods, which is nice. I've been buying a lot of clothes lately. And the reason why I love my closet is because it's L-shaped. So when I buy packages, I can bring them around the corner and open them up and nobody can see me. I love my closet. Who doesn't love a good closet? But honestly, I love my dressing table. I see my family every day, but I miss my parents. So I like getting up in the morning and coming in here and seeing my dad and my mom laughing. I think we have the same laugh. And then I alternate notes that I really love that have inspired me so that I can look at them in the morning. This is a great one from my daughter, from some friends, from my doctor. So I love my dressing table.
Do you have a favorite piece in your closet?
I do. It is this gown, which my mother designed, the tone on tone, so beautiful. She was a very, very teensy fashion model, so it doesn't fit me, but I've kept it. She asked me to bury her in it. She loved it so much. It had a white fur stole, but it was just too pretty to bury. Sorry, Mom.
Is there anything else you want to mention about the closet?
It's too small. I need a bigger closet.
Thanks for watching. For more Homeworthy content, be sure to like and subscribe. What do you think of your mom's interior design style?
I don't like it. I want modern.
When you decorate your house, what are you going to put in it? How are you going to decorate it?
Pokemon cards, movie theater, Xboxes, popcorn machines, bubblegum machines, arcades, video games.
On today's episode of Homeworthy, we're touring a stunning home in the heart of Washington, D.C. that is filled with a beautiful art collection sourced from Maine all the way to the Middle East. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hi, Homeworthy. Come on in. Welcome. I'm Darcy, and I'm delighted to have you in our home in Washington. Please come in. Hi, I'm Darcy Bundy. Welcome to my home in Washington, D.C. We're very centrally located here in the city, close to all of its many amenities. Well, for about 1 million years, I worked in the oil and gas business and had a very intense career, traveled a great deal. When our daughter turned about 12 years old, I realized that something had to give, and I needed and wanted to spend more time with her. So I left that industry, and about the same time it began to register that I had had a lot of people asking me to help them do their homes. And so I thought, well, maybe I could have a different kind of life and do a little interior design and still be much more available to my family than what I had been able to be when I was traveling all the time for work. And so that's how I became interested in design, or really intensified my interest in design, and how I came to have a small interior design business. There's no question, travel always informs interior design. Yes, I traveled places as diverse as Malaysia, Caracas, all over Western Europe, China, and you'll be seeing many things from China in our home here. The Middle East, I was trained as a Middle East specialist, so I spent some time in the Middle East as well, and there's no question that you bring all of that home with you, both metaphorically and to a certain extent literally, when you're fortunate enough to be able to do that kind of travel. Well, my husband and I had looked at a lot of homes, and when we walked into this one, I spent 2 minutes walking through the first floor, and I turned to my husband and gave him that wink and a nod, and I said, "This one's it, honey." And the reason is that this house is beautifully structured. The architecture is there, it's substantial. The windows are very large, very handsome. Ceilings are very high, which is important for art and placement of furniture. Very clean lined, and not a lot of unnecessary glitz. So, this house was a spec house. It was designed by a wonderful young Washington, D.C. architect named Alex Barker. And, but he had to appeal per his, the financing, the developer, he had to appeal to a wide array of potential buyers. So the house was completely white when we bought it. Every single room was the exact same shade of white. But that's okay. I mean, that allowed me to really see the space. I would call it a real clean slate, not a blank slate, because there was a lot of architecture in this house, and it was strong and good and really sensible, and I would say intelligible architecture. The house made sense. So we knew right away when we walked in. And it's been a great house. It's been great to do. It lent itself to the customization that we have spent the last year and a half doing. So we're in the foyer, which of course was my first glimpse of this house, and I had an immediate great impression because of the height of the ceilings and the handsome millwork on the walls. I knew exactly where a very major piece of furniture of mine here would go, that it would be right here in the entryway. This is French, early to mid 19th century. In various incarnations in other homes, it's been a bar, it's hidden a television, it could be a coat closet. This piece is really interesting to me because you can tell, you know that it belonged to a military family because this is the patriarch, his military medal. And so I'm very, very fond of this piece. It has all of its original hardware. And when I walked into the house, I knew this is going to go right there. Over here, we have one of a pair of Italian chairs, antiques, probably 150 to 200 years old. This painting is something that's very special to me. It's by an artist whose name is Josephina Ender, and she was born and raised in Argentina and lived there during the military dictatorship, the so-called Dirty War in 1973 through, I believe, 1986, when anyone who was considered quote-unquote subversive or having leftist ideas was sometimes disappeared, banished, imprisoned, whatever. She received a phone call in the middle of the night which said the following: "There is no place for a Jew in Argentina." She and her husband fled very shortly thereafter. Now, she traveled the world for 3 years until she got a green card for the United States and ended up settling in Maine, where she lives today in her mid-80s, still making beautiful art. This piece is fascinating because it is done 100% in pencil, graphite, and yet the level of detail is just extraordinary. The draftsmanship is amazing, and she is still making art and represented in a wonderful new gallery in Woolwich, Maine. And I was just looking at the dates closely on this painting, and it appears to say 1982 to 1985, which means that this is a piece that she took out of Argentina and eventually finished either in Europe or in the United States. And so again, this piece, this is a survivor who has made this beautiful piece. I particularly like this with this modern light fixture in the ceiling in the entryway, but in addition, I tend to like otherworldly or cosmological art about portals, and of course you can see that this is looks like a moon and maybe a sun and so forth. So I wanted this to have a pride of place. This is a special woman who has made this piece of art. Over here we have embroideries from China. These would have been on the front of a robe of a nobleman working for the emperor, and the beautiful detail just kind of knocks me out. You've got your lion that looks a little bit like a dragon too. You've got your storks and bats and so forth, and you're going to be seeing a lot of antique Chinese textiles, Middle Eastern textiles, etc. as we go through the house. And the symbolism in all of these pieces is something I'd like to talk with you about as well. So I would just conclude with a foyer here by saying you have this great looking herringbone floor, you have these high ceilings, this big black window door, and so when we walked into the house I had a very favorable first impression with this foyer. But let's go into the living room. This is a room that I'd like to linger in a bit because it contains some of my favorite things. People always ask me, do you have a favorite room in the house? And it's kind of like picking your favorite child. But if I had to pick, I would say probably this room. Please come in. Okay, let's start over here with this painting, Artist Unknown. I do my best to really research all the art we buy, but this artist remains unknown to me. However, its appeal to me is that this, to me, looks like a window. And as I've kind of said, portals interest me, windows, doors, black holes, keyholes, etc. So a fair amount of the art in the house has that kind of symbolism, including another piece in this room. I like how heavily the paint was put on this painting, and it looks as if it might have been done in a frenzy, complete opposite from Josephina Ender's work, which is so meticulous. These are fun. These I bought in Cambodia. Antique bells with this lovely little creature on the top. These pieces, if anyone out there knows what they are, I would love to hear. I think they may be Inuit, carved bone, little faces, and it opens. I thought originally it might have had tobacco stuffed in it, but there's no residual smell. So I have no idea what these are, but I love them. I bought these in an antique shop in Maine, where many of my things come from, because for years and years and years we had a summer home in Kennebunkport, and so I was very much an aficionado of the gallery and antique scene in Maine. So a lot of my things were purchased in Maine, but of course come from all over the world. This piece is English, early 19th century. I've had it for a million years. A million years. Well, actually, I've had a lot of things for a million years here. Moving over to one of my very favorite paintings. And again, you can see I think you can see my interest in things that look like they are otherworldly. This to me looks cosmological. Although when I talked with the artist, her name is Heather Chanto, she's a young American woman who's getting huge critical acclaim these days. I said, Heather, I don't see a title on this painting. And she goes, oh, I called it Underwater. And I laughed. I said, to me, it looks like outer space. And she laughed too. She said, that's fine, that's great, I can see that as well. She tells a funny story about having painted this really large painting and gotten so into it and then realized she couldn't get it out the studio door and had to take it off the frame and roll it, get it out and re-stretch it. So it's kind of, so Heather now, she was living in Maine. She was living in Maine, but now she lives in France. And she's restoring a wonderful old barn and studio and doing her painting there. The furniture is fairly low lying, and that's from Restoration Hardware, so you too can have that and the matching chairs. Purposefully low so as to keep as much of the light as possible in this room. One of the tips for young people who are just designing their first home is that in a room you want to go from low to high so that your eye moves up. So it moves up for these paintings, for example, for this mirror that I want to talk about, and then it comes down low for the furniture. You want the eye to travel around the room, and you want the eye to find an empty space to rest as well. So let's look at this mirror. This mirror was bought in Chiang Mai, Thailand, but comes from Cambodia, probably from an old temple. Legally exported, I'm always quick to say, but I love it here, all alone on the mantelpiece, reflecting the Buddha in front of the painting on the other side, which is my single most favorite Buddha of all that I own. I start with my own things because I take my possessions, our furniture and art from home to home. And I mention that specifically because a number of people who have been through this house with me over time have said, my goodness, did you buy everything new for this house because it all fits? And I say, no, I bought this house precisely because my things would fit in it. So in fact, I bought almost nothing new for this house. So I start by thinking, where will my major pieces of furniture and my major pieces of art go? And with this house, I literally knew within 3 minutes exactly how I would, basically lay out all my major furniture on the main floor. Okay, next we're going to go to the dining room. So when we bought this house, I thought the dining room was way too big, way more than we needed. I kind of tend to like intimate dining rooms and so forth, but I've come to really appreciate this room. Again, the architecture, originally everything was white, but you can see that there was lovely paneling, so we painted it this deep blue color, trying to relate with what was in the living room and our dining chairs. And I've come to appreciate the size of this room. I think of it not just as a dining room, but I think of it as a gallery of beautiful things. And one of the nice things about this house is that you have 2 ways to get into every main room on this floor. You can come in this way, and then you can go out that way. So that's a very nice architectural feature. Starting with this table, it's something that I designed and had made. It's the base is an octagon because our former home in Georgetown, the dining room was an octagon. So we had this table made for it, but it works nicely here. Over here, this painting is by a mystery artist. I have a lot of work to do to make the correct attribution. If I'm able to do so, and if I'm right in what I'm guessing about, this could end up being a painting that's worth a fair amount of money. It comes from the 1950s or 60s. It's what's called the Washington Color School or the Color Field School. I just have got to find out which of the artists did it. I bought it in an antique store in Maryland. The man who sold it to me said that it came from a very prominent collector's collection when she passed away. It was part of an estate sale that her children and grandchildren orchestrated, and he said she was a very prominent collector of contemporary art, particularly from this part of the world. And the way this is done, there are no visible brush strokes. the paint is applied, and then the artist takes some sort of a medium, and it can be as simple as alcohol and water mixture, and sprays it on. The brush marks disappear, and you have these kind of wonderful wet-looking splotches. And once again, this looks to me like the universe, and so it's very appealing to me. Even if it turns out to have been done in somebody's, garage by somebody that no one's ever heard of, I still find it very appealing, and of course I love the colors. I would point out that it's been hung over the panels like this. I've occasionally had people say, well, the painting is too big it doesn't fit in the panels. But this is actually a very contemporary way to display your art. Don't worry about the size of the panels. Hang the piece where you think it belongs. This piece in the corner, for example, is an English corner cupboard. And I've had it for 1,000,000 years too. It's hidden a TV in one house, it was a bar in another house, but it's 19th century. You can take it apart for travel, the top half comes back. Then it's just a fun thing. These are really interesting. This is a kind of pottery, a Japanese pottery called Raku. And Raku, you get these beautiful colors and these glazes by the pots are taken out by the artist, the ceramicist, when it's boiling hot, and instead of letting it cool, it's immediately immersed into a flammable subject like shredded newspaper or sawdust, which then fires it. Comes again, and you get this beautiful glaze. This was actually a student in Maine who studied the ancient, because it goes back to the 16th century Japanese technique, studied the technique, and then made his own little Maine twist by going to the beach and getting the driftwood to make the tops. So it's called Raku. Table is Chinese, 19th century. It's filled with table linens. So I want to tell you about this piece. I bought it in the Marché aux Puces in Paris. I love it on this blue wall. In a prior home, it was against a white wall. It didn't show nearly as well. And I'm particularly fond of it above this beautiful sculpture by an artist named Melissa Turner, who lives in Baltimore. And this is all handmade and very delicate. Wonderful mineral here, and I do love minerals, is selenite from Morocco. Quite a challenge to get home. This I can't even pick up. This is a real clamshell, kind of fun. And again, I'm kind of working with all of these curves here on this space. This mirror is American and very, very old. I've had it for 35 years myself. Bought in a hardware store in New Jersey. That the hardware store was a very old-fashioned store, and the gentlemen who owned it were very elderly, and they had acquired this mirror and had no idea what it was or what to do with it. They put it up in their shop and they put a price tag on it, and I bought it and then took it to an expert who told me it was really nice and old, and so I've been excited to have that ever since. I love the griffins on the top. These are by an artist by the name of Phoebe Carr. My brother had an art gallery, a fine art gallery in Kennebunkport, Maine, and he represented this artist. That gallery is now, he's retired. And finally in this room, this is French. Also been in our possession for a long time, 19th century. It was in the living room in another house, in fact the last two houses, but in this big dining room I needed some more furniture. And then finally, these two pots are Moroccan, and they are as old as 18th century. I brought those back from Fez, Morocco, which is a shopper's paradise if anyone ever has the opportunity to get to Fez. Rugs, textiles, ceramics, beautiful old caftans, etc. So as you can see, if you pan the camera around this way, our kitchen is down at this end, and this is where my husband and I have breakfast every day. Here is one of the only examples of a new piece of furniture that we bought for this house. This pair of sofas replaced a much more traditional pair of sofas that we traded them out for. But otherwise, basically, we didn't buy anything for this house. Starting here, I'll just tell you about this. This table has been in my father's family for nearly 200 years, so it looks very simple, but obviously I have a strong emotional attachment to it. People always ask about this. It's Chinese, very old. It weighs a ton. It's made of bronze, and it would have burned incense and probably some sticks and so forth. People often ask about the pitchforks on the wall and find that odd. I've had those a very long time as well, but to me they're sculpture, and I like them. I like them in this room in particular. I try to generally put them in a kitchen area. The pots are antique. This one, the large pot, is an antique from Greece, where I lived for a time. Then this is a funny story. This is a funny story. So you see this stone. This is a marble. When my husband and I moved into the house, it was winter time and it was cold. And we came down, we were literally sleeping on a futon. Our furniture had not arrived. We came down the first morning we had resided in the house, turned the fireplace on, sat and read the paper, and all of a sudden we heard a cracking sound. So what had been on this wall was the same quartzite that was on the kitchen counter. But apparently, you cannot put quartzite on a fireplace unless you do all sorts of really heat-resistant backing. So the very first day we lived in our house, our brand new fireplace, quartzite fireplace, cracked. And we were sitting right here and right here. We were afraid it was going to fall down on us. But out of disaster, because I thought, oh my God, we bought a lemon. This house is a lemon, which of course we since feel quite differently about. We had the opportunity to choose this piece of stone ourselves, which I love. And I chose it specifically to go with this painting. And I'm often asked about my favorite pieces in the house, and this painting has to be one of the top 5. This is also by the same artist that did the blue and white and black flower painting in the living room. This is by Jung. And I'll try to make a long story short. In 2011, I was reading Architectural Digest, and I turned the page. There was a full-page ad for a gallery opening in New York City featuring this painting. And I had an immediate reaction to this painting when I saw it in the magazine and ripped it out and put it in my inspiration book and forgot about it. Fast forward any number of years, we were up at our summer home in Maine, and we went to a gallery that we frequent often and have bought many of these paintings from. And I walked into the gallery and I saw this painting. This was in 2017 or 2018. And I did not remember at the time the story about ripping it out of Architectural Digest, but I had the same reaction when I saw this painting in person that I'd had when I saw it in the ad in AD. So I said, okay, I have to have this painting. I have to have this painting. My husband is a wonderful guy, and he agreed. He was so we bought the painting, and by coincidence, my inspiration book, my old inspiration book, was there in our house in Maine. And a week or so after we bought the painting, and we had left it in the gallery because we were going to ship it to our home in DC, I went through my old inspiration book when I found it, thinking, well, this will be fun. And I turned the page, and there's the ad from Architectural Digest of this painting. I could not, the power of coincidence, how powerful coincidence can be in lives, so I was so excited, I rushed back to the gallery with my ad from Architectural Digest from 2011, and the gallery owner took a picture of me holding that ad in front of the painting and sent it to the artist, to Jung. Jung was so excited by the story that he said, I want to cook dinner for you. Turns out Jung has a restaurant in Portland that is highly acclaimed. He's a famous chef up there as well, and he cooked dinner for us to celebrate the coincidence of life. And so this is one of my favorite paintings. These doors are by a company called Nano, I believe, and they do open all the way. I will tell you that at this time of the year when the climate is changing, it's been very warm, now it's very cold. They're a little sticky, and today it's quite cold, so it would be hard to get them readily open and shut. But the doors are obviously a major architectural statement of the house. And yes, the doors and the windows were a very compelling part of our decision to buy the house. I'll just quickly mention, this is another very old Moroccan pot, which I'm very fond of. Yeah, I'm a big believer of high and low in the sense of, you can buy expensive things, but you can also buy inexpensive things. And I bought that chair on Amazon. It's just not fancy at all. You don't have to spend a fortune to have a beautiful home. I feel that very strongly. And when I had an interior design business, quite frankly, my favorite clients were the young people starting off on a budget and just thinking how much fun it was to work with them, to see how cool a place you could make on a budget. And I mean that truly. This is by a woman named Shana White, who lives in Maine. This is a photograph or a photogram with encaustic beeswax over the top and a shimmer of metallic dust. She was given a commission by a stipend by the Maine Commission on the Arts to go and live on a remote island in the Bay of Fundy called Grand Manan. It's off the shore of Lubec, Maine, which is the easternmost part of the United States, and she lived in a lighthouse for 3 months taking photographs of the historical fishing community. These are poles, wooden poles that are stuck into the sea that trapped the herring and so forth. And this part of this area, the Grand Manan Island, has arguably the greatest tidal change in the world. The tides rise and fall by 20 feet. And she lived there alone in a lighthouse for many months doing this wonderful series of photographs. So we'll go scoot back through the dining room. Like I said, we have 2 entries in and out of each room. I'm just going to show you the bar. And come on in. I'll show you the alcohol. It's here, my husband's fine tequila, his fine whiskeys, and then there's the wine underneath there, and then there's more here. This is a funny story I forgot to tell you. I had a house in Houston 35 years ago, and all of the elderly people in the neighborhood told me that Bonnie and Clyde lived in it in the late 1920s. And of course I believed them because everybody said that. And when it was time to leave that house, I said, I need a memento of the Bonnie and Clyde house. So I took this light fixture, which is a handsome old piece, and it's been with us ever since in every single home. And by the way, my husband and I tend to move a lot, so we get a lot of practice in doing this design and so forth. Anyway, so I brought this home from the Bonnie and Clyde house, and then I thought I'll do some research and find out, exactly when Bonnie and Clyde lived in the house that I used to own. Turns out, Bonnie and Clyde never lived in Houston. It's a complete urban myth, and I've been telling everyone for 35 years that this comes from the Bonnie and Clyde house, when in fact, it's just a nice old lamp, nice old light fixture, and no such thing as Bonnie and Clyde in my old house in the Houston Heights. And I guess one of the things that I would say in that regard, you can hear that it's really that I enjoy doing research on the pieces that I have. There are times when you find out it's not at all what you think you bought. I mean, it's completely wrong. Other times, it's just so enriching to learn these things, to meet the artists if you're lucky enough to do that, to research that period of time when they were making pots, such as I showed you earlier in Morocco, that look like that and that they're still making them today. I have found that to be the most fun thing about collecting, is because you learn so much about so many different historical periods and parts of the world. I guess next we should go upstairs. I will meet you up on the upper level where we'll look at some bedrooms quickly. Come on up. This painting is by a woman named Elizabeth Stockton. She's very much painting today. She's a contemporary living artist. And it's of a salt marsh, which looked exactly like the salt marsh that our house in Maine sat on. So this had pride of place in our Maine home until we sold it recently. This is the best place in this house for this painting, but this is where it's landed, and we love to have it. It looks exactly like the view that we had from our house in Maine. So I'm very fond of that. I'll take you into our principal guest room. This floor is all bedrooms and bathrooms. So again, this room was the exact same white as every other room in the house. And this is the floor where we've put a lot of wallpaper to change things up. This particular wallpaper is a grass cloth by Philip Jeffries. I love the vague greenness of it. One of the most interesting things in the room are this pair, I should say, of Italian lamps. These are mid-century, and I bought them in an antique store in Texas where we lived for many years. So we designed this headboard and had it made. The plates above are antique Japanese. This I bought in New Delhi in India, and interestingly, these ends screw off, and in some cultures they stuff prayers inside. I'm not sure if that's what that was for, but you see, you've got your religious figure in the center. These were purchased in Hong Kong. They are old photogravures of various old Chinese scenes. I started to travel when I was 16 years old. I grew up in a small town in Connecticut. No, we were not world travelers then. My dad was a small town doctor. But at 16, I made my first trip to Europe, and I was snagged. I mean, that was it. I was ready to go. So my third year in college, I attended the London School of Economics, lived in London as a poor student, but I still managed to buy things while I was there. I mean, I would go without eating if I could buy something. By the way, I do have things in this house from those days as well. I mean, I keep them all. So that started it, and then I was in graduate school back in the United States after that, and majored in Middle East studies. So that, got me interested in Islamic art, Islamic textiles, etc. And I traveled a great deal. I lived in Greece for a time, collected and bought things there. And then, yes, once I started to work in the oil and gas industry, I traveled a great deal, as did my husband. There would be times when I'd be in Caracas and he'd be in Kazakhstan, and our child was home with a nanny. That's when I kind of decided this was getting to be a bit much. But we have had an opportunity to travel a great deal in our lives, and it's been so enriching. I have to say that of all my travels, perhaps my most favorite would be Morocco. It is a shopper's paradise, as I mentioned earlier. I love Italy as well. Thailand is also a shopper's paradise. Many of the things that we have here in the house are from India, China, Thailand, and Morocco, and were brought back from trips, multiple trips to those countries. This was the room that I did for our granddaughter, and I did it pretty much when she was still in utero. She's only 20 months old now. In any event, this was meant to be her room. She would have been sharing a bedroom when they visited with her brother. There's what they call a Jack and Jill, a bathroom, I should say there. I meant to say bathroom. This, however, is a Fortuny lamp. It's silk, hand-painted silk. It comes from Venice. And I have several of these in various sizes and shapes in the house that I will point out to you. The curtains have been with me for 30 years here, as had, by the way, the curtains in the room we were just in, the green room with the grass cloth. So these have been 30 years, lots of different incarnations. The art in this room is quite varied. There's an antique Indian miniature, probably early 19th century at the top, a very contemporary collage underneath it. Another collage over here to the right, a seascape of our beach in Maine that I actually did. And then these paintings are by a man named Delft that my brother used to represent in his fine art gallery in Kennebunkport. So this is, and the rug is also an antique, bought from a really, really great dealer of antique rugs in Texas. And on these two walls, as we go into the principal bedroom, are what was originally a screen, which we separated out the panels. These are views of ancient Rome. And I haven't always been able to find a place for these panels in our other homes, and I was bound and determined we'd use them in this one. And I think this is pretty effective, the two here and the two here. Again, this is that same color white, but we did paint the ceiling up above the blue, but we were trying to cover up a little bit of the white here with the panels. So this is the principal bedroom. Nice big room, very appealing to us immediately when we were looking at the house. You can see that we have a peaked ceiling here. I've kind of been debating whether we want to paint this wall or wallpaper it in that one too, but here I'll start with this fantastic fixture up above. It's done by a woman who's become a friend of ours. She's a gallery owner and a fine artist, a painter and a sculptress. Her name is Sarah Bouchard, and she has a proprietary process for making these globes of paper. And whenever we move, Sarah comes and rehangs the globes for us. So she's done it now two or three times, and I'm sure it will help us again in the future. But she has a wonderful gallery in Woolwich, Maine, and she's an enormously talented woman. This I bought at an old mill, a textile mill in Maine. It was an old ratty, that they used to put the shirts on and do the shirts. And then I covered it in this beautiful fabric, and I gave her one of my skirts and some of my jewelry. I used to design jewelry for fun, and so I made those. And so she's been a little model for me ever since. And this little creature down here I found in the trash. Someone threw it away, and he's really very, very handsome. And so some people's trash is other people's treasure. This is a treasure for me. It was trash for someone else. This is very old. It would have been made, it's from Indonesia originally, made by a Muslim pilgrim going on the Hajj to Mecca. They would make the textile, bring it with them on the Hajj to Mecca, where it would be essentially blessed for having made the pilgrimage, and then they would bring it home. So those kinds of stories just fascinate me. And again, these are all individual stitches. How people, the handmade, and that's another thing I would say, particularly to young people starting out. Everything is so mass produced today, and it's just so readily available, and you can get it quickly and so forth. Handmade things are a world of difference, and to have something that a person has labored over and loved really enriches your life. So I would encourage people to look for the possibilities of a small handmade piece of furniture or sculpture or textile, whatever. The bed is by R.H. The art is by Brent Baker. And I would then turn your attention, I think, over here. The black demi-lune table with a reclining Buddha on it. The demi-lune table is Chinese, 19th century, very rustic Chinese table. This Buddha is the only reclining Buddha that I have, so they're not that easy to find, so I'm very happy with it. Above it is a piece that I bought in Beijing, but it comes from the Muslim part of China where the Uyghurs live, and the quality of the embroidery on that piece, on the sleeves in particular, is just really extraordinary. This is antique from India, from the early part of the Raj period, and it's been in several of our homes as well. I really like it at the end of this bed, which is very rectangular, and to have this curve at the end of the bed and the curve there I find very, very appealing. This is another one of my Chinese altar tables, this one with an old red painted finish on it. This is a very pretty feature. It's meant to look like a cirrus cloud. These are dragons, which I love. These are very old Chinese vases that we had made into lamps, but this dragon is really quite wonderful. It's antique Chinese as well. And then here, this is a chopan. Some people would say it's an ikat, but it's a chopan from Bukhara, from the Silk Route. There are a couple others of these in the house. These would have been robes that both men and women wore in the old days. And then there's some antique Chinese pots above and my barnacles. And here's an example of a piece of furniture that I had before we got married. And it's lasted all these years, just like my marriage. And so I've had this for probably 37 years. And so, you know, you buy what you love and you get to live with it for a lifetime and hopefully pass it on to your heirs. I hope my heirs will want these. So finally, just a quick look at the bathroom, just to show again, demonstrating the power of things like wallpaper, paint, texture, to deal with what I'd call a clean slate house to start, where everything was white. So the wallpaper is a grass cloth by Schumacher, designed by Celery Kemble. And you can see these wonderful windows in our shower room. We do have a blind that rolls down, but in the winter months, we bring in our ferns from outside, which sit in really tall pots, and they go about up to here, and so they cover the parts you're most concerned about. So in the wintertime, you don't even have to put the shade down. But it's nice to have this shower room with the bath. I love to take a bubble bath and the shower over there. So that about does it on this floor. We do have a nice antique chest from Nepal, bought from a dealer in Massachusetts because I never bought anything in Nepal. We're on our way down to the final room, our downstairs living room, and in this hallway we have another chopan, again from the area around Bukhara, the Silk Route. This again would be a robe. The size of this would have been a man's robe. Above we have an antique hat from one of the stands, maybe Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. I have a small collection of those, so this would be another chopan, probably late 1800s, early 1900s. So if you come on down here, I will show you the final room of the house. So this is the room where we have our television. As you can see, this is where we watch movies. And I confess we sometimes have dinner down here watching TV. We are not 100% below ground. This door on the left opens up. You do walk upstairs into the garden, and so you do have natural light. A lot of homes in DC, as your viewers may or may not know, are partially subterranean. This one is right in between. So starting over here, we have my largest Fortuny, again, the hand-painted silk, just very, very charming. There's something here I really have been waiting to show you all. These are very old Chinese screens. They would be on a window, beautifully hand carved etc. But what I really want to point out to you is this and this. These are bats, same in all of them. And as you see, the bats are going into the house. These would be shutters on a house. They're not flying away, they're flying into the house. Now in the West, we think of bats as being scary, poisonous, carry disease, etc. But the bat in China is a symbol of good fortune. The Chinese word for bat and the Chinese word for happiness is pronounced identically. It's fu. And it's written with different Chinese characters. But as a result, in China, there's a lot of bats in antique textiles, antique ceramics, antique carved wood, etc. And you want, if it's a textile on your shirt, you want the bats to be going towards your heart for good fortune, for happiness, for blessings. And here in these windows, the bats are all going inside the house, into the house. Here, they're all going into the house. I find that so interesting. When bats are so scary, particularly post-Wuhan. Another Buddha, this is actually the head of a Buddha. And this one, if I believe the dealer and the attribution, I do have the provenance, is actually 15th century. So this one is probably my oldest. This wall mural is from France, brought in from Marseille. Another beautiful Buddha here. And with that, I will let my new friends go. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed doing this. It's a real treat for me, and I'm grateful to have had the opportunity and truly glad to have spent the time with you. I know I talk a lot. I'm very passionate about what we've collected over a 35-year period, and I hope that I've shared some of my enthusiasm with you in a way that is meaningful or fun. Thanks again.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hi, my name is Jewel, and welcome to our Virginia home. My name is Jewel Marlowe, and I am an interior decorator and designer in the Northern Virginia, DC area. We bought this home about 11 years ago. We lived in it for a few years, moved away on a couple military assignments, my husband's Air Force, and then we moved back. And when we moved back, we realized that this has the potential of being a home that we stay in for a very long time, if not forever. So at that point, we decided to make it a home that felt like us and to make it more personal. So it was basic in every sense. Kind of this really soft beige everywhere, 90s kitchen, orange oak, and nothing that was like wowing you when you walked in. But my style is glamorous, colorful, and eclectic, and it was time to infuse a lot of that into this space. So this is the foyer, and I believe that the entryway to your home should be kind of a sampling for everything else that you're about to see. So I've used the same colors, a lot of blues and greens, and an eclectic mix. This was a very boring, this is a common theme I keep referencing, very boring foyer when we first moved in, but we've added the molding. It really extends the height of the ceilings and gives you something visually to really look at as you walk in. I'd like to draw your attention to the chandelier above, but also to the balloon from yesterday's birthday party, because we're keeping it real. We have some art here. This is an artist named, I have to look this up, Jessica Mortiz. She's from Israel. I really appreciate that. It's representing our time during COVID, how it just felt like a time lapse. I think we can all relate to that. And so time is just endless. So that was a little memento that will always remind me of that nice time that we were together so much, but also never seemed to end during COVID. So on the door here, I have used spoonflower fabric that I had customized, custom colored and scaled so that it had this kind of waterfall marbly effect. And it's great, like I mentioned, it has some of the same colors that I'm trying to reference throughout the home. Painted the door green, and then I have this vintage piece because it's a little bit chinoiserie, and I love things that are old. It just brings depth and character to a space. I've had these installed because they're from France and I got them for my birthday a couple years ago. So from the entryway, I have direct views into the kitchen, which is great, except that it's not if you have a mess in your kitchen. So I knew that the kitchen was the thing that you see when you walk in. It had to be special. So what I've done is installed this beautiful Cambodian countertop, black and white. It was a bold choice, but also I'm hoping that it wears well with time because it's black and white and it's a timeless color choice. We have this koi or dolphin koi table below, which adds a lot of charm and character. We have some Serena and Lily chairs that are probably the only kid-friendly fabric in the whole house, if I'm being honest. And what's interesting about this, there used to be a 90s railing to the next room. So we removed that, we built a built-in bench, and we scooted everything this way a smidge. That way we were able to extend our island as well, which has been great. We use the island for all sorts of daily activities, homework, cooking, all the things. So we have moved a lot. I think it is around 13 times in 19 years, which is probably about 12 times too many. But it's okay. We have loved the experience. We've loved living in different locations. And I think that has helped to really shape my style because I don't feel constrained to one style or one era or one decade. It's this rich evolution of time and space and the blending it all together that is truly probably the reason that I decorate the way that I do. So I'm really grateful for each of those moves and those assignments. From there, we moved towards the living room. And I wanted this to be a very restful space. There's a lot of warm light. We have skylights, we have windows all this side and some there. So it's great for that warm afternoon light. But because of that, I was able to balance it with this really beautiful blue color. This is Farrombal Parma Gray. I've installed a mural. This is the Sarza store out of New York, and installed molding with it because these are taller. I think they're about 12-foot ceilings. I needed something with presence to really draw your eye into this room. I didn't want just a big blank wall. Over here we have, well, this is fun. This little, sometimes people are scared by her. I kind of like her. She was picked up at a thrift store as we traveled across the country in one of our moves. Here we have an original piece from a local artist named Laura Gunn and some Scalamandre drapes, an eclectic mix of things that are collected over time from England and different assignments, minted art there, a vintage map. Love vintage maps. I think they're very intriguing, especially when they have some age like that one. To me, the secret to mixing vintage pieces and new pieces together is to be consistent. So if one area of the room has something very old and mixed with something new, then the next vignette, if you will, should have kind of the same amount. I don't want one room that feels very modern and then the next room next to it to feel very old. It's a blend of the two. And as long as you're consistent and own it and feel like, hey, I'm really good at this, I'm gonna pull this off, then it doesn't matter if it's eclectic. I picked up this chair at an estate sale and reupholstered in Stroheim again. Some tripod chairs, a postmodern contemporary coffee table that my movers dropped in the last move. It's okay, I'm still not over it, but it's okay. And then some more burl as an accent feature on this wall, and some books, just because it's really a nice way to decorate a long piece, is to pile up the books as long as you want, mixed with some modern mushroom lamps. So my very favorite part of the room is this chandelier from the Hudson Valley Lighting Group. I love the way that it adds presence. It's just spectacular. One thing that they advertise about it is that it's perfectly imperfect, and each of those little glass tubes is hand painted, and it's not a straight line. It's kind of very organic feeling, and I love that in design, when it feels like things are just natural and evolve, have like this evolution and flow to it. So this is our dining room, and it's probably the most eclectic room in our house, and also one of the first that we did. This is Milton & King wallpaper, and I love a statement-making wallpaper in a dining room, and I think this fits the bill perfectly. We have actually my kids counted at one time, 33 animals in this wallpaper. Whether that's true or not, I haven't fact checked. But you can look, I think it's inspired by South America. We've paired it with Interior Blue by Farrow & Ball, which I think adds a nice level of sophistication to this vibrant color. It used to be white, and I thought it would be fun to mix it up and try something new. We did this molding on the ceiling, yes. It was a fun design, and my contractor actually has some credit for coming up with the construction of it. I can't take all the credit. This is a new lighting fixture that we just installed. It is from Christorama. I like, again, that it's perfectly imperfect. It has these almost icicle-like elements to it. And I have to say, I did the floral arrangement. I'm kind of proud of myself. I just learned how, so I'm just saying. I'll get better with time, but for me, as a starter, this is pretty good. We have some, this right here is inherited from my family. The silver was my grandma's, and I love that. It makes me think of her every time that I eat here. And some china that we picked up in England. While we were there, we would go to this town called Stoke-on-Trent, which is kind of the, maybe the world factory. At one point, I think now maybe not quite so much selection as it once had, but the military spouses would make trips where we'd all go together. We'd buy tons of china, and so I have service for some ridiculous amount, like 30, because we could. So I have an eclectic mix of chairs at the moment because this room is ever evolving. We had a different table and chair set here up until 2 weeks ago. I have plans for something even different coming up soon. But these are some vintage Milo Bogman chairs that I reupholstered myself. Don't look too closely, but I did it while sitting at my children's soccer games over a course of a whole soccer season. So it's a lot of memories, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into that one. So I'd like to invite you to our laundry room. This space was kind of a hot mess. It was just the washer and dryer and nothing else. We installed uppers because I needed the extra space. So these are upper cabinets, but I knew that would feel too deep for this, especially for a small room. So my workaround was to wallpaper everything else in the space the same so that it visually disappears. It's great. I have all that extra storage, and I don't think it's an eyesore like it was before it was wallpapered. I have a unique piece here by an artist out of Oregon, and these beautiful little lucite handles, which I love. I think they are MTech. And one of my very favorite parts of this space is, again, some Cambria. I love it. I beat it up, and it's still holding up really well. Love our washer and dryer set as well. These are GE, and they don't mold, which is something that I was really concerned about, having a front loading washer and dryer. These have a vent system. It's great.
Whoever thought laundry could be so fun, or she?
Well, I wish I could say that I was better at it. So this piece freaks out my kids, but I adore him because he reminds me of my Grandpa Charles. In fact, I think someday when I'm old, I might look a little bit like this man. But he adds soul, he adds character, and he looks great as the first thing that you walk in when you see, unless you're asking my kids. So this is our bedroom, and we love it. The overall vibe here is this very soft, feminine look, which I was afraid my husband would dislike. He's cool with it. It's no big deal. But this is setting plaster, Farrow & Ball setting plaster. And we have molding that took forever to do. Interestingly, if I ever sell this house, I wanted this molding on this side of the wall to be the same as the one over there. But I wanted something behind the bed that was a feature wall. I did not want to chop it up and put it inside each of these smaller molding squares. So instead, I built, using plywood and wood, a frame to go behind, and then I wallpapered that instead and framed it out. I used to be craftier. Now that I design for my own clients, I have less time to do DIY, but I do love it. I do love being able to think through a problem, make it solve it. So we have lots of layers, lots of textures. I have kind of this Art Deco bed, this beautiful chandelier from Corbett Lighting, and this fun little funky postmodern bench that I upholstered years ago. And I love this little pinstripe on the bed because it feels kind of like a little French girl to me. This piece right here, I'm very proud of the fact that I found it at a British auction for £10. Kind of proud of that, that's amazing. These overscale lamps used to be, get this, the shades used to be fuzzy, like furry, like almost an animal. And so I ripped that off and I redid them. Part of me wishes I still had that to show you because it's just really hard to explain, but I added something that just visually went with the room a lot better than gold furry lampshades. So I do love this mirror. We picked it up while stationed in Rhode Island, and it is this really kind of over-the-top piece that adds instant glamour to any room that I've hung it in. And it's a decent sized scale that kind of holds its own in this little vignette over here. We've never lived in a house for more than 2 to 3 years, other than this one. Every one of my 4 kids was born in a different location, a different state, which is great, but this one felt like coming home. I did have a kid born here, the last one, and we've had babies born here. Now I'm gonna cry again. Babies born here. So I guess it really is, for me, about the memories.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.